We are nearing the end of April, which means we are nearing the end of Earth Month. I don't know if you were aware, but April is Earth Month and April 22nd is Earth Day. And last week we talked a little bit about weather and Mother Nature and how it just affects things as you're planning your wedding. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about weddings and waste. Those are two things you don't really think about or connect, right, when you're planning a wedding. But it might be something that's on your mind. And I do have couples increasingly asking me about how they can be a little bit more conscious, make some eco-friendly decisions. And last year I did do a more in-depth dive into the background of Earth Day and how it started, etc. So I will link it for you below and also here, so that you can take a look if you want more of a background. But today I wanted to talk about less about what creates waste, but making decisions to reduce it and how you can make those choices yourself as well. And it doesn't have to be so like high impact. It's not as difficult as you might think it might be. And some of the decisions you're already making might already be sustainable or eco-friendly or eco-conscious. And this one quote that I did want to bring up again by Anne-Marie Bonneau, she is a zero waste chef. She said, "We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions doing it imperfectly." And that just goes to show with collective effort, we can create change even with micro efforts. And this is true in just daily life in general, and that's for another day. But it's not really about having a zero waste wedding because obviously that's not possible, but it's about being a little bit more intentional. Welcome back to Wedding Planning Wednesdays, a weekly live series where I dive into my favorite wedding topic of the moment or of the week. And right now I've been trying to do themes for the month. For April, we were kind of centering things around Earth because it was Earth Month. I am your host, Jane Yu. I am the co-founder of UNS Events. We plan, design, and DJ weddings that intentionally reflect who you are in its details. My main goal is to help engaged couples like you make decisions confidently throughout your planning journey. As always, I'm really grateful that you're here. If you're just getting started, you can download my wedding planning checklist and timeline. It is linked below in the description to get you started. And I hope it will be helpful on your planning journey and take a little bit of that overwhelm away as you're getting started. So I want to talk first about paper, which I feel like it can seem obvious, but maybe not. Because when you think about a wedding, you think about invitations and save the dates and sending them out. And you have these beautiful flat lay photos that you see on Instagram, on Pinterest, and you really want to incorporate your color palette. And I totally get it. And I'm not against at all sending out invitations or save the dates. But if it's not a big priority or super high on the important list to you, and you just never thought about potentially making another decision, you can potentially not send paper invites. Also, you do save money by not having to print or buying stamps. And then you also make an impact on the carbon footprint by not having to mail or ship anything out. And so I think if you do want photos, you can always send out digital invites, and then you can get a physical set printed at a printer with your save the dates so that you can still get beautiful photos. Because at the end of the day, if you do think about it, it's really nice for a guest to, I think, receive it and then just have a reminder. But at the same time, you're also probably going to be sending out text or email reminders, and they put this invite up on their fridge or tuck it away in a file folder or something like that, and it's eventually going to become trash. And you as the couple, or maybe your parents or some close family or family members or friends, they might want to keep it as a memento of your wedding, but most people are going to throw it away. And so I think that's a really good way to save money, to save on paper and reducing that waste. And some of my couples have definitely opted in for like digital save the dates and paper invites because they still wanted to feel formal. Some go fully digital. Of course, if you have a shorter timeline, doing digital is just also so much simpler. And there's so many great options these days to do that are linked to your website and such. So paper, that's one thing. Invites. And then ceremony programs on the day of. Some of the things that I suggest cutting down are ceremony programs because, again, it's really just used for 30 minutes, if that, and then thrown away immediately. So that one is a big one that I kind of push actually clients to do, unless it's maybe like a religious program where guests really need to follow along or something like that. But there's also the option of having a QR code or like a link for people to go to when they arrive so they can follow along on their phone. So that's an option. But ceremony program is definitely something that I suggest getting cut, just because it's a throwaway item. Again, you can have it printed if you want, just as a keepsake on nice paper and for photos, which I think is totally fair. But that is one I definitely recommend perhaps cutting. Menus also, I do love an individual menu on a nice place setting, but if that's not on the high priority list for you, then what you can also do is maybe have one menu, have a double-sided table number with the menu on the back, or have one sign with a table number and then one sign with the menu, and that way people can take a look, everyone at the table can take a look. But I do, that one's a hard one because I do love it when you sit down and you see what you're eating. And of course, not everyone's going to know that the menu is on the table if they're not sitting on the right side. So, it's a little bit of a process, but that is one way to save, because if you have, between the ceremony program and the menu, if you have, 150 people at your wedding, that's 300 pieces of paper of printing that just get thrown away almost immediately. So that's another way to save on paper. And then just any kind of signage, right? Any kind of signage that is, it is a one-time use, but maybe, and to be honest, like the larger signage, you don't really have multiples of. So I feel like it's not a terrible thing to print it, especially for photos. I personally think just the sheer volume of things like menus and ceremony programs and invites makes kind of a difference versus like one-off signs for like cards and gifts and things like that. But I do think there are ones that you could maybe borrow, but actually not really. I take that back. So yeah, that's something that you could print, but you can always think about if you really need that signage, and then decide if you want to print it or not. That's just always another way. I think the sort of way to think about it is, is it going to become an immediate throwaway item, and no one's going to use it afterwards? Because all of those other signages or pieces you can kind of keep as your own keepsake. And I think it's fun to like keep all your wedding signs. We do have ours all in a folder somewhere, and it's fun to just look back at it sometimes. Moving on from paper, the second thing that I have noticed or observed throughout my years of weddings is probably, it might come as a surprise, because I feel like, of course, favors. And if you're having a destination wedding or you're having a wedding where people are traveling in, you have welcome bags, and welcome bags with a lot of things in them. And I think this is probably the biggest category with the most kind of leftovers, especially favors. So a lot of times, favors will be left, even if it's at each individual place setting, they often get left behind just because guests forget, or maybe they don't want the item, and then I collect it all at the end to give back to the client, and maybe they could use it for some other purpose or to gift other, in other instances or something like that. But that's something to consider. And then also favors when they're left, let's say, we flip the check-in table and people can grab a favor as they're leaving, they don't all get taken. So I think one way to combat this, if you think it's a favor that some people might enjoy, is just to have less of them. So if you have 150 guests, maybe just make 100. And that way things won't get thrown away. Because, sometimes things are, favors are things that people can eat or consume. And, those definitely get wasted. And if they get left behind, I do try to distribute it to staff, like catering staff, and like just anyone who will take it, because I just don't want it to go to waste. But that's just something to consider, maybe reducing the quantity just so you don't have all these leftovers at the end of the night. And then again, that saves you on budget. Welcome bags. I mean, I do like them, but I feel like, do we really need another tote bag? So maybe thinking of something that you think a guest or guests would actually use. I love functional gifts or favors. So maybe it's like a DOP kit instead, or maybe it's just something that's handed to them when they check into the hotel versus like something that they're going to throw away. Or maybe it's something that you sourced that's secondhand, but I don't know, that doesn't feel super sanitary, so maybe not that idea. But again, if it feels like you're doing it just to do it, I don't think you need to. I would prefer maybe doing something thoughtful instead, whatever that may be, like a handwritten note or something like that that's going to welcome them in that sense. But of course, that does take up more bandwidth too. So those are just some things that, like tangible things that I feel like maybe couples can forego. And really guests experience, like they remember what they experience and what they're feeling versus what they're getting, So like they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I remember this wedding because of these crazy like cookies that we got or whatever. It's not, I mean, I guess if they're amazing, like you would remember it. But what I'm trying to say is it's really all about the experience versus having something to take home. One thing that I think is really easy to forget is when couples are sourcing items, and I'm guilty of this too all the time because, I do style shoots and I order things for clients as well. Buying things from Amazon is so easy. Like it's so easy to do and it's so easy to do last minute. It's so easy to return things. And it's obviously a great way to save money. Not that I'm saying that I do that all the time, but what I'm trying to say is, ordering things online, it makes a big impact because obviously shipping leaves a carbon footprint. So I'd say when possible, even if you are ordering things online, selecting a day that's a slower shipping time, or like they have the like environmentally friendly days, or things like that, or we consolidate shipments. So that's obviously a great way to make a micro decision. And then as far as actually sourcing the items, yes, sometimes purchasing is a little bit less expensive than renting, but I still feel like renting makes more sense because it's less work for you, less work in terms of bringing it to the venue, like making sure that it gets set up properly, etc. Rentals are just kind of self-contained and usually part of a larger order. So I think doing that or borrowing from someone that already had a wedding, or maybe you find it on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. You wouldn't borrow something, but you might buy something on resale. So I think just thinking about those things, like if you do buy something, just thinking about how it's going to be reused or maybe repurposed. Or if you are going to buy something, maybe it can be something for your home afterwards kind of thing. So just thinking about its next life. But I do think borrowing is underutilized. What's the word where it's like, I feel like it's under, I can't remember. If anyone's in the chat, type it in there. But I feel like it's it needs to be more popular. I totally forgot the word, but I feel like borrowing from friends or I have things as a planner too for rental, or sometimes I let clients borrow things. So just asking around to see what's possible, I think or what people might have, like totally tap into that. Tap into your resources and your network. And then if you do buy something, maybe consider reselling it or gifting it or donating it to somebody else. That's always a great option. Florals, I love flowers, right? Florals really elevate a wedding. I love so many floral designers who are so creative, so artistic, but it's obviously one of those things that it just breaks my heart a lot of times when they're just taken to be thrown away, or if I have to just throw away florals because no one's taking them. And so there's many ways that flowers can live on because they are perishable, right? They're not going to last forever anyway. So obviously, like repurposing anything from ceremony to other parts of the wedding, like the reception, very popular thing to do, very common thing to do, so that you don't have to use as many flowers. I think really pushing or letting guests take arrangements home is really great. And I think with enough messaging, like during the reception, people will take it home. Even if the vases are rentals, like from the florist or whatever, you can say just take the flowers from the vase, or sometimes florists like put the arrangements in dishes that just kind of pop off the vases or whatnot, or they're floor standing, or they're just sit on a bar or table. Then if you give people enough notice, like during the reception, people will plan to take things home. So sometimes, like if we don't plan for it in advance, we will, we'll be kind of running around trying to give it to people. But flowers are pretty popular. Like staff will take it home. Aunties love flowers. People who might want to take it for their partners or significant others or spouses who didn't come to the wedding, great. Like I think it's such a great opportunity for flowers to live on. Another great way, if you just have so many flowers that guests can't take it home, then maybe make arrangements to donate to a nursing home or any other kind of facility or hospital, or maybe someone is having a shower the next day, or the florist knows. There's definitely ways that can be repurposed. Of course, it takes a little bit of planning ahead, but I think that's a great way for it to be reused. And then I think doing something with your bouquet florals, I know that's a small element. I've seen this a lot where people do like a pressed flower, like a piece of art essentially with the flowers from your bouquet. And of course, that's not going to save everything, but it's a way for the flowers to live on forever. So I feel like that's a really fun thing to do afterwards. If you're not so particular about fresh florals and not super particular about the design, there's companies out there that rent floral arrangements that are silk. And you can kind of choose from the designs that they have available. And that way you're not wasting flowers or just throwing them away. That's an option. And it is definitely less expensive, but they don't have that same kind of movement as fresh florals do. I feel like for things that are a little bit more farther away from the eye, like ceremony, or honestly, even on the tables are fine. I feel like maybe for the bouquet, you'd want a fresh floral just because I feel like it feels different to be holding fresh flowers versus like fake stems. But that's just, to each his own, like whatever you think. You could do a mix of the two as well. So that's another consideration, and I know not a lot of people love silk, which is totally fine. But if you do don't mind it, then I think that's a really, really good option. But again, same thing as rentals, just thinking about how to prolong its life afterwards. And the last thing I will say is there are some florists who commit to composting. And there's also caterers out there who commit to composting, and that comes with a little bit of a markup in price because obviously that process takes manpower and labor to take it back and actually do the process. But you can look for someone that's going to, like, vendor that's going to commit to that and pay a little bit of a premium for it. I don't know how much more it would be. But if that's important to you, that's an option as well. And the last thing that I want to talk about is food. Food, obviously that's a hard one. I think when things are like tray passed or plated and it's a little bit more controlled quantity, like food waste is less likely to happen. But when you have a station, let's say like for cocktail hour, like a charcuterie station, I find that a lot of times, or even whatever kind of station, I find that a lot of times things get wasted because, of course, you want it to be plentiful, but when you're planning for 150, not everyone's going to be eating that. So if you are going to have stations, I would just ask your chef or your caterer, hey, I have noticed, or I saw a video on food being wasted, and I would really like to minimize that. So is there any way to have this for less portions or things like that? And you're okay with things running out a little bit, if that happens. So that's just an idea in terms of catering, because food waste is, of course, very hard to manage when it comes to like something like a station or a buffet. So all that to say, if reducing waste is even a little bit of a priority for you or is on your mind, there's so many micro decisions that you can make. And I think the one thing that you might think about is the thing that might just be immediately a throwaway item or just really not functional or not going to add to the guest experience at all. I feel like you can consider potentially adjusting your approach or, thinking twice about whatever decision you're going to make. And that's where a lot of, change will happen. And these small intentional decisions will really add up, not just as it pertains to waste, but to your budget as well. And so I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into weddings and waste and how they are connected. And I can't believe next week is May already. I am traveling a little bit next month, or next week, so I won't be doing a live, but I will be posting another video. And again, I'm really, really thankful that you're here. If you found this video helpful, I would really like it if you could share it with your network, with other couples, if you're a vendor watching it, with your community, just so that other people who are interested in this content can discover my channel. And I'm so close to 200 subscribers. Whoever that 200th subscriber wants to be, I would love it if you could subscribe if you found this helpful. And oh my gosh, someone other than my husband, who's John Doe, Savage Chef 24, commented. I'm getting goosebumps because that is the first time I feel like someone other than John has commented on my channel, like live. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much. I'm glad you found this helpful. And this is Wedding Planning Wednesdays. I am Jane Yu, and I will see you next week. Bye.